My name is Lillian Moore. I'm 36 years old. 5 years ago, my parents told me they couldn't afford to save my 7-year-old daughter's life. They said they were struggling, living on a fixed income, barely getting by. They told me there was nothing they could do. 2 months later, I discovered the truth. They had co-signed a $600,000 lakefront house for my brother, and the paperwork. It had been signed just 2 weeks before my daughter's heart stopped beating. They thought I'd never find out. What they didn't know was that I kept everything. Every receipt, every email, every text message, 63 pages of proof that told the real story. Last month, my brother collapsed in his office in Chicago. Acute myeloid leukemia. Aggressive. Fast-moving. The doctors said he needed a bone marrow transplant immediately, a perfect 10 out of 10 match. My phone rang for the first time in 4 years. It was my mother. She was crying so hard I could barely understand her. "Lillian, please," she said. "You're his only chance." And what I did next changed everything they thought they knew about me. Before we go any further, take a moment to subscribe, but only if you believe that even the deepest betrayal can still lead to a choice rooted in compassion. And I'd really love to know, where are you listening from right now? What's the temperature like where you are? This is a fictional story, with a few details enhanced by AI to make it more vivid. But the emotions, the pain, and the choices, those are completely real. Now, let me take you back and show you how all of this truly began. I was born in 1990. My brother, Daniel Moore, came first, 4 years earlier in 1986. We grew up in Brookfield, Connecticut, one of those quiet, polished suburbs where every driveway had 2 cars and every parent talked about college before their kids even hit middle school. My father, Richard Moore, was a senior accountant at a regional firm. My mother, Evelyn Moore, worked as a banking manager from the outside. We looked like the kind of family people envied. Stable, comfortable, predictable. But numbers don't lie. And eventually, I started paying attention to them. Daniel's college fund sat at $36,000. Mine barely crossed $9,000. I found the statements years later while helping my parents organize files on their computer. I remember staring at the screen, feeling something cold settle in my chest. When I asked my mom about it, she smiled in that careful way. "He's older, Lillian. We had more time to save for him. Don't worry, we'll help you too." They helped. In their own way. With loans. I graduated from Drexel University in 2012 with $63,000 in student debt. Daniel graduated from Columbia University in 2008 without owing a single dollar. Already stepping into a high-paying position at a top investment firm in Manhattan, one memory never left me. Christmas, 1998. I was 8. Daniel was 12. He tore open a brand new gaming console with multiple games stacked beside it. I unwrapped a secondhand bicycle, repainted in lavender because it was my favorite color. "We thought you'd enjoy being active," my dad said, smiling like it was thoughtful. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself love wasn't measured in dollars. I was wrong. As we grew older, every family dinner became a stage, and Daniel was always the main act. At Thanksgiving in 2015, I had just started working at a nonprofit, helping displaced families find housing. I was earning $42,000 a year, and I was proud of it. It felt meaningful. It felt real. My mom placed the turkey on the table and beamed at Daniel. "Tell everyone about your latest deal." He leaned back, confident as ever. "Closed a $14 million acquisition last week. Biggest in our division this quarter." Everyone clapped. My father lifted his glass. "That's my son." Then my mom glanced at me like she almost forgot I was there. And you, Lillian. How's your nonprofit job going? The way she said nonprofit made it sound like a temporary hobby. It's good, I said. We helped 4 families secure housing this month. That's nice. Honey, that same year. Daniel casually mentioned his bonus, $360,000. Just a number to him. Like talking about the weather. When I met Caleb Turner in 2013, my parents' first question wasn't whether he made me happy. It was whether he made enough money. Caleb was a civil engineer earning about $65,000 a year. Steady. Honest. We fell in love quickly. The kind of love that feels certain. Like you've finally found where you belong. Around that same time, Daniel started dating Vanessa Clark, a corporate attorney with connections that impressed my parents far more than anything Caleb could offer. The difference in how they reacted said everything. Caleb proposed in 2014. I was pregnant. It wasn't planned. But we were happy. Nervous. But ready to build something of our own. My parents weren't thrilled. My mother forced a smile at my baby shower. Well, at least Caleb has a stable career. Engineering is practical. My father gave us a $500 check as a gift. Later, I found out he had given Daniel $18,000 that same month for a car down payment. My daughter, Emma Rose Turner, was born on April 3rd, 2014 at a hospital in Philadelphia. 7 pounds, 2 ounces. She had my green eyes and Caleb's warm, effortless smile. The kind of smile that made everything feel okay, even when it wasn't. My parents visited twice during her first year. Daniel sent a $50 gift card. I told myself it didn't matter. They were busy. Daniel had his career. I had my own family now. Caleb and I had Emma. That was enough. I believed that. For 7 years. Until the day everything started to fall apart. May 12th, 2021. Emma collapsed at school. Her second-grade teacher, Mrs. Collins, called me while I was in the middle of a meeting. I was in the middle of a case review meeting, helping a single mother navigate emergency housing options. When my phone started vibrating on the table, I almost ignored it. We weren't supposed to take personal calls during meetings, but something made me glance down. Ms. Moore, this is Karen Collins, Emma's teacher. Her voice was calm, but there was something underneath it that made my stomach tighten. Emma fainted during recess. The nurse is with her now. But I think you should come pick her up. I was out of that building in less than 3 minutes. When I arrived, Emma was sitting in the nurse's office, pale but smiling the second she saw me. Hi, Mommy. I'm okay. I just got dizzy. The school nurse gently pulled me aside. Her heart rate was very high when I checked, around 130 beats per minute. She mentioned she's been feeling tired lately. I'd really recommend getting her checked, just to be safe. We went straight to the ER that afternoon. They ran an EKG. The doctor who came in afterward looked young, exhausted, but kind. The kind of doctor who knew how to soften bad news but couldn't change it. Mrs. Moore, Emma's heart rhythm is abnormal. My chest tightened. I'm referring you to pediatric cardiology at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. They'll need to run more tests, including an echocardiogram. You don't get referred there for nothing. The appointment was set for May 18th. 6 days of not sleeping. 6 days of watching Emma laugh at cartoons, play with her dolls, completely unaware that something inside her chest wasn't working the way it should. Caleb took the day off. We drove in silence, fingers intertwined so tightly it almost hurt. Emma sat in the back seat, humming softly to herself like everything was normal. Room 7, B. Pediatric cardiology. Dr. Lauren Hayes. She had streaks of gray in her dark hair and a calm presence that felt almost unreal in a moment like that. She performed the echocardiogram herself, guiding the device gently across Emma's chest while Emma stared at the screen in fascination. "Is that my heart?" Emma asked. "It is," Dr. Hayes said softly. "Pretty amazing." Right. When the test was done, she asked if Emma wanted to pick out a sticker from the waiting room. A nurse took her hand and led her out. Then Dr. Hayes sat across from us. "Mr. and Mrs. Moore," she began, her voice steady. "Emma has dilated cardiomyopathy. Her heart muscle is enlarged and not pumping efficiently. Her ejection fraction is 28%. A healthy range is between 50 and 70. I heard the words, but they didn't make sense. "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means her heart is failing." Caleb made a sound beside me, like the air had been knocked out of him. Dr. Hayes continued gently. "This condition is often genetic. It's progressive. Without treatment, her heart function will continue to decline." "What kind of treatment?" I asked, my voice barely holding together. She didn't hesitate. "She needs a heart transplant." The room felt like it tilted. "A transplant?" I repeated. "Yes. The average wait time is around 18 months. But Emma's condition is severe enough that we can request priority status. That would increase her chances significantly." She paused, then added quietly, "But to place her on the transplant list, there is a financial requirement." Caleb leaned forward. "What kind of requirement?" She slid a document across the desk. I stared at the numbers. Deposit required $195,000. Estimated insurance coverage $31,000. Patient responsibility $164,000. My vision narrowed. $164,000. "I know this is overwhelming," Dr. Hayes said softly. "The full cost of the transplant and follow-up care is over $1 million. But insurance will cover most of it once she's listed. This deposit is what gets her on the list. Without it, she didn't need to finish the sentence." "What happens if we can't?" I whispered. She met my eyes. 6 months to a year? Possibly less. My throat closed. And if she gets the transplant, her 5-year survival rate is about 83%. 83%. Not certainty, but a chance. A real chance. "We need to act quickly," Dr. Hayes said. "I recommend getting her listed within 8 weeks. Sooner, if possible. 8 weeks to find $164,000. I looked at Caleb. He was staring at the paper like it was written in a language neither of us understood. We drove home in silence. Emma fell asleep in the back seat. That night, after we tucked her into bed, Caleb and I sat at the kitchen table and went through everything we had. Savings, $12,000. His 401k. He could withdraw up to 50, but after taxes and penalties, we'd get maybe 42. My 401k had about $18,000. We didn't own a house. We were renting. Our credit cards were already maxed out from medical bills dating back to Emma's birth. There was nowhere left to pull from. So we created a GoFundMe. Caleb wrote the description. I couldn't. Every time I tried. I ended up deleting everything because it felt like I was begging the world to help me keep my child alive. Our daughter Emma, age 7, needs a heart transplant to survive. Please help us save her life. We shared it everywhere. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, our church community, Caleb's co-workers, my colleagues, every parent at Emma's school. 3 weeks later, we had raised $32,100 from nearly 2,000 people, strangers, friends, co-workers, people we had never met sending $10, $20, $50 at a time, along with messages that said things like, "Praying for Emma," And stay strong. And God bless your family. I cried reading every single one, but we were still over $110,000 short. On June 3rd, at 2 in the morning, Caleb and I sat across from each other at the kitchen table, surrounded by papers and numbers that didn't add up. I called 15 banks. He said quietly, "Medical debt isn't considered collateral." They all said no. I stared at the number again. $110,000. "Lillian," Caleb said gently, "we need to ask your parents." I hadn't asked them for money in 15 years. Not since college. When they made it clear that needing help meant you hadn't planned your life properly. But this wasn't about me. This was Emma. I picked up my phone with shaking hands and called my mother. June 8th, 2021, 7:14 p.m. The call lasted 11 minutes. I know because I checked it over and over afterward, trying to understand where it all went wrong. "Mom, Lillian, hi, honey. How are you?" "Not good. I need to talk to you about something important." "Is Dad there?" "He's watching the news." "What's going on?" I told her everything. The diagnosis, the numbers, the transplant, the deposit, the fundraiser, the amount we were still missing. There was a long silence. "Oh, honey," she said finally, her voice soft in that careful way people use when they're about to disappoint you. "That's devastating. I'm so sorry. Have you tried a GoFundMe? I've seen those really help people." "We did," I said. "We raised $32,000. We're still short." "What about insurance?" "They'll cover the surgery after she's listed. But we need the deposit to get her on the list." Another pause. "Let me talk to your father," she said. "We'll call you back." They called 4 days later, June 12th, 7:03 p.m. My father did all the talking. My mother stayed silent in the background. "Lillian, your mother explained the situation. We're heartbroken for you. Truly. But we need to be realistic about our finances." I gripped the phone tighter. "Okay. We retired in 2019. We're living on a fixed income now. Social Security, pensions, retirement accounts. Most of our funds are tied up in investments." My chest tightened. "If we liquidate now, we could lose up to 40%. That would destroy our long-term security. Dad." "Emma is 7 years old." "I understand that," he said, his tone firm, almost clinical. "But we have to think about the future. We're not young anymore. What if we get sick? What if we need long-term care?" My voice cracked. "How much do you have in savings?" A pause? "That's not relevant." "How much, Lillian? We're not discussing that." "I need $110,000 to save my daughter's life. We don't have liquidity," he replied. "Everything is tied up." "I'm sorry. What about your house?" "You could take out a line of credit. We can't risk foreclosure. You could sell. The market is unstable. We'd lose value." Every option I suggested. He shut down immediately. "Dad, please," I whispered. "I'm begging you. I'm sorry. Lillian, we wish we could help, but we can't." And then he hung up. I sat there staring at my phone, waiting for it to make sense. It didn't. What I didn't know at the time was that Caleb tried too. He didn't tell me until 3 months later, after everything was already over. He didn't want to add more pain to what I was already carrying. He called my father directly, June 22nd, 4:32 p.m. The call lasted 6 minutes, according to Caleb. My father's voice was even colder this time. "Son, we understand you're afraid, but we can't support financial irresponsibility. You need to explore other options." Caleb hesitated before asking, "What about Emma's biological family?" There was a pause. Then my father said something Caleb didn't repeat right away. "You're not her real father." "Are you?" Caleb told me about that call months later, long after Emma was gone. We were lying in bed, both of us unable to sleep, and he said it quietly, like it had been sitting inside him, waiting. I didn't cry when I heard it. I think by then, I had nothing left to break. We were lying in bed that night, both of us staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. Caleb said it quietly, like he had been holding it in and couldn't anymore. I didn't cry. I remember thinking only one thing. My father said that to my husband while our daughter was dying. On June 28th, Caleb and I booked 2 last-minute tickets to Naples, Florida, on a credit card we couldn't afford to use. We told ourselves this was the final try. Face to face, my parents' condo was on Cypress Bay Drive, a gated community filled with palm trees and perfectly trimmed lawns. I remember the address because I looked it up later. Estimated value just under $400,000. They had sold the house I grew up in and moved there after retiring. Better weather, lower taxes, a simpler life. My mother opened the door. "Surprised?" "Lillian, Caleb. You didn't tell us you were coming." "It was last minute," I said. She hugged me, and for a brief second, I smelled the same lavender lotion she had worn my entire childhood. For that 1 second, I felt like I was 8 years old again, believing she could fix anything. We sat in their living room. Everything looked new. New furniture, a sleek exercise bike in the corner, a built-in wine fridge glowing softly under the kitchen counter. I explained everything again. The deadline, the deposit, the time we were running out of. My mother cried, real tears. She held my hand tightly. "If we had it, we would give it to you," she said. "You know that. But we're older now. Lillian, what if something happens to us? What if we need long-term care? What if Emma dies?" I whispered. My father's expression hardened instantly. "That's not fair," he said sharply. "You're trying to manipulate us. I'm asking you to help save your granddaughter." "We can't," he replied. "I'm sorry." I looked around the room again. The expensive couch, the oversized television, the quiet hum of that wine fridge. No money for Emma. We flew home the next day. 2 weeks later, on July 8th, I convinced them to come visit Emma at the hospital. I thought if they saw her, if they held her hand, if they heard her talk about her new heart like it was some kind of superhero upgrade, something inside them would change. We met on the 4th floor, West Wing. Emma lit up the second she saw them. "Grandma, Grandpa," she reached out, smiling like nothing was wrong. My mother hugged her carefully, mindful of the IV lines. "Hi. Sweetheart, how are you feeling?" "I'm okay," Emma said. "The doctors say I'm getting a new heart, like a superhero upgrade." My mother smiled through tears. "That's right, baby. You're so strong." My father sat at the edge of the bed. "You're a fighter, Emma." They stayed for over 2 hours. They read her a book, watched her favorite show, laughed at her little jokes. For a moment, it looked like a normal family. In the parking lot afterward, I asked one more time, "Dad, please." He shook his head without hesitation. "Lillian, we've already discussed this." They got into their rental car and drove away. The deadline was 7 days away. "If you believe my parents made the right choice by protecting their money instead of helping save their granddaughter, for any reason, comment right. But if you feel that turning away when a child's life was at stake is something you could never accept, comment heartless. There's no perfect answer here, only what your heart tells you is right. July 15th. I called Dr. Hayes. "We couldn't do it," I said. My voice sounded empty, like it didn't belong to me. "We don't have the money." There was a pause on the line. I'm so sorry. Lillian, what happens now? We'll continue supportive care, she said gently. We'll manage her symptoms. Keep her comfortable. Comfortable. Not alive. Comfortable. She's 7 years old, I whispered. I know, she said softly. I'm so sorry. That night, Emma asked me when she would get her new heart. I lied. I told her soon. August was unbearable. Her ejection fraction dropped to 18% by August 22nd. She lost nearly 10 pounds in just a few weeks. She was exhausted all the time. Even playing with her dolls became too much. She would stop halfway just to catch her breath. One afternoon, she was lying on the couch while I sat beside her, gently running my fingers through her hair. Mommy, she said quietly, I'm tired all the time. Is that normal? I forced a smile, even though it felt like my face might crack. Your heart is working really hard, baby. You're so strong. She looked at me with those bright green eyes, the same ones she'd had since the day she was born. When do I get my new heart soon? I whispered. But we both knew I was lying. The doctors had already told us the truth. We didn't have months. We had weeks. I called my parents one last time, August 19th. They didn't answer. I didn't leave a message. On September 8th, Emma was admitted to the ICU. Her heart was failing. Caleb and I didn't leave her side. Not once. We held her hands. We told her stories. We sang her favorite songs. The ones she used to hum in the car like everything in the world was simple. At 6:31 a.m. on September 9th, 2021, her heart stopped. I watched the doctors rush in. I watched them perform chest compressions on my 7-year-old daughter's small, fragile body. I watched the monitors, the numbers, the silence between beeps. I watched the doctors look at each other. At 6:47 a.m., Dr. Hayes turned to me. Time of death. 6:47 a.m. Her voice was soft, gentle. I'm so deeply sorry. Caleb collapsed into sobs, his entire body shaking like he couldn't hold himself together anymore. I didn't cry. I just sat there, holding Emma's hand. It was still warm. I stayed like that for 40 minutes before they gently told me I had to let go. I didn't call my parents. Daniel did. I don't know how he found out. Maybe the hospital. Maybe someone else told him. It didn't matter. They flew in for the funeral. September 14th, 2021. A cemetery in Philadelphia filled with over 300 people. Friends, co-workers, parents from Emma's school, people from our church. Even strangers who had donated to the fundraiser came to say goodbye. My parents sat in the back row. They didn't come up to me before the service. They didn't sit with me. They stayed far away, like they were attending something that didn't fully belong to them. My mother wore a black designer suit. My father stood beside her in a pressed navy blazer. After the service, at the cemetery, my mother approached me. Honey, she said softly, reaching for my hand. We're so sorry. If there's anything we can do, I pulled my hand away. You could have done something, I said. My voice sounded empty, hollow. You didn't. That's not fair. My father started. Leave. I turned and walked away before he could finish. 2 days later, an envelope arrived. A condolence card. Inside was a check for $500. I stared at it for a long time. Then I deposited it and donated every dollar to the Children's Hospital in Emma's name. After that, I cut them out of my life completely. Or at least, I thought I had. The next 2 months blurred together. I quit my job. I couldn't sit across from other families and tell them there was hope when I had failed my own child. Caleb went back to work after 3 weeks because we still had bills to pay. Someone had to keep things moving. I stayed home. I sat in Emma's room. I stared at her toys. I listened to the silence that used to be filled with her voice. Sleep stopped existing. I would lie awake until 2, 3, sometimes 4 in the morning, replaying everything, every phone call, every plea, every door that had been closed in my face. On November 19th, at 2:14 a.m., I was scrolling through Facebook in the dark. I don't even know why. Maybe just to feel something. Anything. And that's when I saw it. My mother's post. Beautiful weekend visiting Daniel's stunning new waterfront home. So proud of our successful son. There were photos. 6 of them. Daniel and Vanessa stood on a balcony overlooking the water. I recognized it instantly. Seattle. The place was breathtaking. Floor-to-ceiling windows reflecting the soft gray sky. A sleek, modern kitchen with marble countertops. Polished hardwood floors that caught the light just right. And beyond it all, that view. Endless water stretching into the horizon. The kind of view people spend their entire lives chasing. The kind of view that costs everything. There were dozens of likes. Comments poured in under the post. Absolutely stunning. Wow. What a dream home. So proud of you. I stared at the screen, my chest tightening with every second. Daniel had bought a house. I closed the app slowly and placed my phone face down on the table, as if that could erase what I had just seen. It didn't. The image stayed with me. That balcony, that view, the quiet pride in my mother's caption. Even through a few typed words, I could hear her voice. For 2 months, I couldn't escape it. It followed me everywhere, into the silence of Emma's empty room, into the long nights when sleep refused to come, into the spaces where grief should have been the only thing left. But somehow, something else had taken root. A question. On January 14th, 2022, at 3:28 in the morning, I sat up in bed and opened my laptop. I didn't know exactly what I was looking for. Maybe confirmation. Maybe something to match the anger that had been building quietly beneath the surface, waiting for something real to hold on to. I searched for waterfront properties in Seattle. Listings filled the screen, one after another. Modern condos, glass towers, endless views. And then I saw it. The same angle, the same waterline, the same balcony. My breath caught. I clicked on the listing. A luxury building in West Seattle. Unit starting at over $500,000. I scrolled through the photos until I found it. Corner unit, top floor, exactly the one from the post. My hands were already trembling when I opened a new tab. Public property records. Anyone could access them. I typed in the address. For a moment. The screen stayed blank. Then the results loaded. Owner Daniel Moore. Purchase date October 15th, 2021. Sale price $590,000. I stopped breathing. October 15th, just over a month after Emma died. I clicked further into the details. Purchase agreement signed August 23, 2021. Down payment $130,000. Co-signers Richard Moore and Evelyn Moore. August 23rd. 2 weeks before my daughter died. I sat there, staring at the numbers, trying to make them make sense. While I was begging for help, while I was calling, pleading, breaking apart piece by piece. They were signing documents, approving loans, planning a purchase. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel shock anymore. Just something cold, something clear. I printed everything: transaction history, property deed, mortgage records, wire confirmations. Page after page slid out of the printer. 63 pages in total. I placed them into a binder, one by one, methodically. like I was assembling evidence in a case that had already been decided. I sat at the kitchen table with it in front of me for hours. When Caleb came home, he found me there. "What is this?" he asked quietly. I didn't answer. I just pushed the binder toward him. He opened it. He read in silence. I watched his face as it changed. Confusion, then disbelief, then something darker. "They had the money," he said finally. "They always had the money. Keep reading," I told him. He turned the pages faster now. My father's investment account. July 2021. Over $700,000. My mother's retirement account. More than $500,000. Over $1 million. And still, they said they had nothing. That's when Caleb found the email. An old tablet sat on the kitchen counter. Something we used to use years ago to share photos with my parents. It was still logged into my mother's email account. She had never logged out, never cleared anything. Caleb opened it and scrolled back. August 2021. There it was. An email from my father, addressed to my mother and Daniel. Subject line, Seattle property opportunity. I leaned over his shoulder and read every word. They had reviewed the numbers. The market was strong. The investment was solid. The return would be reliable. And then, the part that stopped my heart. They had discussed my situation. They wanted to help. But they had to be realistic. The transplant was a gamble, a maybe. Daniel's condo was a sure thing, a tangible asset. Then the line that burned itself into my mind. Family wealth stays in the family. I read it again, and again. Emma wasn't family. I wasn't family. We were a risk, a bad investment, a loss they had decided not to take. I sat back slowly. Everything became clear, not complicated, not emotional, just a decision. I opened my laptop and created a timeline. July 15th. We missed the transplant deadline. August 10th. My father approved Daniel's purchase. August 23rd. The contract was signed. August 25th. $130,000 transferred. September 9th. Emma died. October 15th. Daniel officially owned the property. It was all there. Clean. Precise. Undeniable. They had the money the entire time, and they chose not to use it. I looked up at Caleb. "I want to have dinner with them." He frowned. Confused. "What I want all of us in one room," I said. "You, me, my parents, Daniel, Vanessa." He studied me carefully, searching my face for something. "I want them to look me in the eye." The room was quiet. He didn't answer right away. Then finally, he nodded. "Okay." On February 1st, 2022, I picked up my phone and called my mother. She answered on the second ring, breathless, like she had been waiting for this moment. "Lillian, hi. Mom." There was silence. Then her voice broke. "Oh my God. Lillian, I didn't think you'd ever call again." "How are you?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I've been thinking," I said calmly, "about everything. About us. I want to try to heal." There was silence. Then I heard her start crying. "Yes. Yes. Of course. Oh, Lillian. I'm so glad. I think we should have a family dinner." I continued. "All of us. Just talk." "Yes," she said quickly. "We can do it here in Florida. When can you come next weekend?" "Saturday." "Perfect. I'll cook your favorite." That night, Caleb and I booked our flights. He asked if I was sure. I showed him the binder. "I'm sure." On February 12th. At 6 p.m., we pulled into my parents' driveway. Daniel and Vanessa's car was already there. My mother opened the door before we knocked. She wrapped her arms around me, sobbing. "I'm so glad you're here." I stood still for a moment before lightly patting her back. "Hi, Mom." My father appeared behind her. He looked older than I remembered. Thinner. Tired. "Lillian," he said, extending his hand. I shook it. Inside. Daniel stood up when he saw me. "Hey," he said awkwardly. "Hey." Vanessa smiled politely. We sat down at the table. Everything was set perfectly. Salmon, vegetables, wine, like nothing had ever happened. The first 15 minutes were small talk. My father asked Caleb about work. My mother asked if we were eating enough. Vanessa talked about a new case in Seattle. Then my mother smiled proudly. Daniel just got promoted. Youngest VP in his division. "Congratulations," I said flatly. My father turned to me. "And you? Still working at that nonprofit I quit?" I said. After Emma died, I couldn't help other families when I couldn't save my own. Silence filled the table. 8 seconds. I counted them. My mother quickly changed the subject. "The weather here has been beautiful. And Daniel's place is just incredible. Right on the water." I took a sip of wine. "I saw the photos." She brightened. "Isn't it stunning?" "It is," I said. Then I looked at Daniel. "When did you buy it?" "Last fall," he said. "We closed in October. October 15th. I said. He blinked. "Yeah, that sounds right." "And when did you make the offer?" "August. I think." Why I reached into my bag and placed the binder on the table. No one spoke. I opened it slowly. "This," I said, "is Emma's death certificate. September 9th, 2021. My mother's face went pale. I turned the page. "This is the property record for your condo. Purchase price $590,000. Down payment $130,000. Co-signed by both of you." My father's jaw tightened. I flipped again. "Wire transfer confirmation, August 25th, $130,000. Vanessa stared down at her plate. Then I pulled out the email. From Dad. August 10th. I read it out loud. Every word. When I reached the line, "Family wealth stays in the family," my voice cracked. But I kept going. Then I showed them the account statements. "You had over $1 million, I said quietly. My father stood up. "This is taken out of context. You told me you had nothing." I replied. 6 weeks later, you wired $130,000. My mother was crying. We were trying to protect the family long term. Emma was family. My voice rose for the first time. She was 7 years old. Daniel spoke then. Careful. Measured. I didn't know how serious it was. Mom and Dad made a financial decision. The condo is an investment. Medical costs. There are no guarantees. I stared at him. Say that again. He hesitated. Even with the transplant. Her chances weren't certain. It was still a risk. A risk, I repeated. The condo is stable, he added. It's a guaranteed return. My chest tightened. She was 7 years old. Daniel. He looked down. My father stepped forward, voice rising. You want the truth? Fine, we made a choice. Her survival odds weren't high enough. We had to think about our future. I stared at him. Our future? Yes. He said firmly. Daniel's investment made sense. It was the smart decision. Smart. I repeated. And even if we had given you the money, he continued, his voice hard now, there's a good chance she wouldn't have survived anyway. We would have wasted it on a he stopped. But it was already too late. My mother gasped. Vanessa's fork slipped from her hand and hit the plate with a sharp sound. Caleb stood up so fast his chair scraped loudly against the floor. Daniel's face drained of color. I stood up slowly. I looked straight at my father. You're right, I said. My voice was calm now. Cold. Emma is dead, and you killed her. Not the disease. The room went completely still. You had the money, I continued. You just didn't choose her. You chose a view over her heartbeat. You chose marble countertops over her breath. You chose your son over your granddaughter. My mother began to sob. I picked up my bag. This is what happens now. You will never contact me again. No calls, no messages, no emails. You don't come near my home. If I see you in public, I will walk away. My voice didn't shake. You are not my parents. You are investors who cut a losing asset. Then I looked at Daniel. Enjoy the view, I said quietly. Every sunrise over that water. That's Emma. Every step you take on that balcony, you're standing on her grave. You bought it with her life. He looked like he might collapse. I turned to Caleb. We're leaving. I left the binder on the table. Keep it, I said. Frame it. We walked out. Behind us, my mother was crying, my father shouting something I didn't bother to hear. The door closed. And just like that, 4 years of silence began. The first week was chaos. My mother called 40 times in 3 days. I didn't answer. I blocked her number. My father sent emails. I saw the subject lines before deleting them. Please read this. I'm sorry. Let me explain. I marked them as spam. Daniel texted once. We need to talk. I blocked him too. By the end of the month, I changed my phone number. I didn't tell them. The letters started in March. Handwritten. My mother's neat. Looping handwriting on cream-colored paper. I recognized it instantly. I wrote return to sender and dropped it back in the mailbox. The second letter came a week later. I did the same thing. By May, I had sent back 11 letters. The 12th arrived on April 3rd, Emma's birthday. She would have turned 8. I didn't send that one back. I burned it in the kitchen sink. Caleb found me standing there, watching the paper curl into ash. He didn't say anything. He just wrapped his arms around me and held me there. I started therapy in late February. Dr. Monica Shaw. Tuesdays at 4. She had kind eyes and a quiet voice. She never pushed. She just listened. In our 3rd session, she asked me something I hadn't expected. Are you grieving your daughter or your family? Both. I said. You're allowed to grieve both. She told me gently. I shook my head. I only lost one. I said. The other was never really mine. She didn't argue with me. Do you think you'll ever forgive them? No. You don't have to, she said. And for the first time in months, I felt lighter. In June, I went back to work. Not at the same nonprofit. I couldn't go back there. Too many memories. I took a position with a child advocacy organization in Philadelphia, helping kids in foster care. Kids who had been failed by the people who were supposed to protect them. I understood them in a way I never had before. In April 2023, Daniel tried to reach me through LinkedIn. I saw the message sitting in my requests folder. I didn't open it. I just hovered over the preview. Lillian, I know you won't read this, but I have to try. I didn't understand how bad things were. I'm sorry. I want to make it right. I deleted it. There was no right. There was only gone. I built a new life. A life where blood didn't define family. Family was who showed up, who stayed. Caleb and I found our way back to each other. Slowly, we started going out again, laughing again. It took time, but we healed in pieces. We planted a cherry blossom tree in our backyard for Emma, every April. It bloomed, and for a while, I truly believed I was done with them. I thought I would never have to make another decision about my family. Then the phone rang. December 3rd, 2026. 4 years, 9 months, and 24 days after I walked out of that house in Florida. I didn't know what had happened yet. I was at work, focused on a case. A 14-year-old girl who had been moved through 6 foster homes in 2 years. I was trying to find her somewhere stable, somewhere permanent. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. But something made me answer. Hello. There was heavy breathing on the other end. Then a voice I hadn't heard in years. Lillian, please don't hang up. My body went still. It's Mom. I didn't speak. I know you don't want to talk to me, she continued, her voice shaking. I know. But it's Daniel. He's dying. My grip tightened around the phone. He has leukemia. They rushed him to the hospital. The doctor said he needs a bone marrow transplant. They said you're the only match. Please. Lillian, I'm begging you. He's your brother. My voice came out cold. How did you get this number? That doesn't matter. Please, I don't have a brother. And I hung up. I sat there, staring at nothing. That night. Caleb came home and found me in the same position. What happened, he asked. I told him. What are you going to do? Nothing. He didn't argue, but I could see it in his eyes. He didn't believe me. 2 days later, my phone rang again. A different number. Miss Moore. This is Sarah Bennett, a patient advocate at Swedish Medical Center in Seattle. Her voice was calm, professional. I didn't hang up. Daniel Moore was admitted 5 days ago with acute myeloid leukemia. It's aggressive. He started chemotherapy, but without a bone marrow transplant. His prognosis is very poor. I closed my eyes. We've tested all available family members. His wife, your parents. None are compatible matches. And you want me to get tested? I asked. Yes. Siblings have about a 25% chance of being a match. You're his only sibling. There was a pause. It's just a blood test. No obligation beyond that. I swallowed. If I say no, we will continue searching the National Registry. But the chances of finding a perfect match from an unrelated donor are less than 1%. 1% without a transplant. He likely has 4 to 8 weeks. 4 to 8 weeks. Emma had 6 months, and that hadn't been worth it to them. I'll think about it, I said. Of course, she replied gently, but time is very limited. I agreed to the test. I told myself it meant nothing. Just information. December 12th, 8 a.m. A lab in Philadelphia. 3 vials of blood. 3 days later. Sarah called back. Ms. Moore? You're a perfect 10 out of 10 match. I didn't respond. That's extremely rare, she continued. Only about a 3% chance between siblings. 3%? My father had said 83% wasn't good enough. And here I was, a 3% miracle. Will you consider donating? She asked softly. What happens if I don't? We will keep searching, she said, but without a transplant. His time is very limited. Weeks? Maybe a month? And if I do, with your donation? His 5-year survival rate is around 65 to 75%. Better odds than Emma ever had. I need time. I said, of course, but please understand, time is the one thing he doesn't have. I hung up, and for 4 days, I didn't sleep. December 15th to December 19th, 4 nights of staring at the ceiling, replaying everything. Caleb didn't push me. He stayed close, made sure I ate, held me when I cried. I kept thinking about Emma. What would she want me to do? I already knew the answer. I just hated it. On December 17th, I called Dr. Shaw and asked for an emergency session. We sat in her office, the winter light pale against the windows, and I told her everything. "What's holding you back?" she asked. "If I save him, they win." "Who wins?" "My parents." "Daniel. They get what they want. They always do. And if you don't save him," I was quiet for a long time, "I become them." She leaned forward slightly. "Lillian, what would you say to Emma if she were here right now?" I closed my eyes. I could see her so clearly. 7 years old. Green eyes. That smile. I'd tell her, I love her. I whispered. That she was the best thing in my life. And what would she say to you? I didn't need to think. She'd tell me to save him. On December 19th. At 9 a.m., I called Sarah back. "I'll do it," I said. "I'll donate." I took a breath. "But I have conditions." "What do you need?" Sarah asked. Her tone calm, steady. Like she had asked this question 100 times before, and understood that every answer came from a place deeper than logic. I took a breath, holding on to the one thing I still had control over. "I don't want to see my parents before the procedure." I said. "I don't want to see Daniel either. I'll do this. And then I'm done." There was a brief pause. Then she answered gently. "We can arrange that. Separate waiting areas. Private recovery. You won't have to see anyone you don't want to." "Okay. Thank you." "Lillian," she said softly. "You're saving his life. I'm not doing it for him." The words came out automatically. Firm. Final. The procedure was scheduled for December 27th. Caleb and I flew to Seattle the day before. The entire trip felt surreal. Like I was stepping into a version of my life that shouldn't exist. Everything had been arranged exactly as promised. A private pre-op room, separate hallways, no accidental encounters, no forced conversations. Still, I saw my mother once. It was brief. Just a moment in the hallway outside the surgical wing. She looked up and saw me, and something inside her face collapsed instantly. "Lillian." She took a step forward, but security moved faster. "Ma'am, you need to return to the waiting area." The guard said firmly. "Please," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Thank you. Thank you so much." I didn't respond. I didn't stop. I just walked past her like she was a stranger I didn't recognize. Pre-op was quiet, controlled, everything reduced to systems and steps and procedures. A nurse explained what would happen. Bone marrow extraction from my pelvic bone, general anesthesia, around 4 hours. Then observation. "You're very brave," she said, offering a small smile. I shook my head slightly. "I'm not brave," I said. "I'm just not them." The next morning came too quickly. They wheeled me into the operating room. Bright lights overhead. The air cold and sterile. I stared up at the ceiling and started counting backward from 10, 10, 9, 8, 7, and then nothing. When I woke up, the world felt heavy. It was 11:30 a.m. My body didn't feel like mine. My hip throbbed with a deep, aching pain. Like something had been taken from me in more ways than one. Caleb was sitting beside the bed. "Hey," he said softly, his voice grounding me back into reality. "Did it work?" I asked. "They got what they needed." He said, "Daniel's transplant is tomorrow." I nodded once and closed my eyes again, letting the weight of everything settle. Later, a nurse came in to check on me. "Pain level 6. I said. She adjusted the IV carefully. "You did really well," she said. "He's lucky to have you." I looked at her. Then away. "Don't tell my family what room I'm in." She gave a small nod. "Already taken care of." For a while, everything was quiet again, until that evening. There was a knock on the door. I knew who it was before I even stood up. Daniel. He looked nothing like the person I remembered. His face was pale, almost translucent. His body thinner, fragile. His head shaved from chemotherapy. He looked older, but not in years, in weight. In consequence, Lillian, he said quietly, I know you don't want to see me. I needed to say something. Please. I didn't invite him in. I stayed in the doorway, holding the space between us. I don't deserve this, he said. I know that. You could have let me die. I would have understood. I didn't do it for you. I know, he said quickly, but I need you to hear this. I'm sorry. For everything. For not standing up for you. For the house. For Emma. Her name hung in the air between us. I studied his face, searching for something. Regret. Truth. Maybe both. Okay, I said finally. He blinked. Confused. That's it. What do you want me to say? I asked. That I forgive you, I don't. He swallowed hard. But I'm not going to let you die. I continued. Not because you're my brother, because I'm not them. Silence stretched out between us, heavy and unresolved. Go back to your room, I said. You have a transplant tomorrow. He nodded slowly and turned to leave. Daniel? He stopped and looked back. Emma would have wanted me to save you, I said. That's why I did it. Don't forget that. He didn't respond. He just left. Caleb watched me from across the room. Are you okay? He asked quietly. I shook my head slightly. I don't know, I said, but that feels honest. 3 weeks later. I was back home when Sarah called. The transplant was successful. She said, his recovery is strong. It worked. I closed my eyes, letting out a breath I didn't realize I had been holding. He asked if he could have your contact information. She added. No, I understand, she said. But what you did, it was extraordinary. I did what Emma would have done, I said. That's all. After the call ended, I sat on the couch in silence. I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel closure. But something had shifted. The weight I had been carrying for years felt lighter, not gone, just different. 6 months later, a letter arrived, not directly to me, but through the hospital, forwarded with my permission. The envelope was thick, heavier than it should have been. I held it in my hands for a long time, debating whether to open it. Part of me didn't want to know. Part of me already knew what it would say. Eventually, I opened it. The first line stopped me. Lillian, we don't expect forgiveness. We don't deserve it. We made a choice that destroyed our family. Your father hasn't been the same since that night. Neither have I. We're in therapy now. Together and separately. Trying to understand how we became people capable of what we did. Last month, we sold the condo in Florida. We donated all of it. Every dollar. $385,000 to the cardiac transplant fund at Children's Hospital in Emma's name. It won't bring her back. It won't undo what we did. But we needed you to know. We were wrong. Completely. Devastatingly wrong. If you ever want to talk. We're here. If you don't, we understand. We love you. We are so sorry. At the bottom was proof. A donation receipt. $385,000. Emma Rose Turner Cardiac Transplant Fund. I sat there for a long time before calling Dr. Shaw. They gave it all away. I said, the house. Everything. How does that make you feel? I don't know. That's okay. Should I respond? What do you want? I don't know that either. Then don't rush it. She said gently. Wait until you do. So I waited. A year passed. In February 2028, 6 years after that dinner, I finally picked up the phone. My mother answered immediately. Lillian, hi. Mom. Silence. Then quiet crying. I want to try something, I said carefully. Just coffee. Or breakfast. Yes, she said instantly. Yes. When? At my place? Just you and Dad. We'll be there. On February 10th. They stood on my front porch. They looked older. Smaller somehow. Like time had finally caught up with them. I opened the door. Come in. My mother hugged me. I stayed still for a moment before returning it lightly. We sat at the kitchen table. Caleb had made breakfast. Coffee, eggs, toast, fruit. 4 plates, 4 chairs. At first. We ate in silence. Then slowly. We started talking. Not about Emma. Not yet. About small things. The weather. Work. A book my mom had been reading. Caleb's latest project. Her photo sat on the mantel. We all saw it. No one mentioned it. When they stood to leave. My mother hesitated at the door. Can we do this again sometime? I thought about it. Maybe. I said. I'll let you know. My father nodded. That's more than we deserve. Thank you. They left. Caleb came up behind me and placed his arm around my shoulders. How do you feel? He asked. I watched their car disappear down the street. It's a start, I said. And then I cried. Not out of pain this time. Something else. Something that felt like hope. People always ask me if I've forgiven them. I don't have a clear answer. Forgiveness isn't a switch. It doesn't happen all at once. Some days, I still feel angry. Some days, I remember everything and it feels just as raw as it did back then. But I also see what they did after. They gave up their home, their comfort, everything, to help other children. Children like Emma. Daniel calls sometimes, once a month. Maybe. I don't always answer, but sometimes I do. We talk about simple things. Work, the weather. Nothing important. We're not close. We may never be, and that's okay. I didn't save him because I forgave him. I saved him because I'm not them. Because Emma taught me something they never understood. Love isn't a transaction. It's not an investment with guaranteed returns. It's a choice. They chose one way. I chose another. Last week, I visited Emma's grave. Valentine's Day. I brought pink roses. Her favorite. I sat there for a long time, talking to her, telling her about everything, about the breakfasts, about her grandparents, about the fund in her name that has already helped other children get a second chance. I told her I missed her. And for the first time in 6 years. When I stood up to leave, I smiled. The sun was setting. Life was still moving forward. My phone buzzed. A message from my mother. Thank you for yesterday. Love you. I didn't reply right away, but I didn't delete it either. And maybe that was progress. 4 plates, 4 chairs, a beginning, not perfect, but real. And maybe that's enough. Before we continue, I want to pause and ask you something from the heart. Have you ever been in a situation like mine, a moment where the people who hurt you the most suddenly needed you the most? If you have, I'd really love for you to share your story. You never know who might read your words and feel less alone. If you would have made the same choice I did, choosing to save someone who betrayed you. Not because they deserved it, but because you refused to become like them. Right, I support you. It would mean more than you know. If you would have chosen differently. If you believe walking away was the right path. Right, no. And if your answer is somewhere in between, if you would have handled it another way, please don't hesitate to share your thoughts. I read every single comment. Your voice matters more than you think. There was a time when I believed love had to be fair, that the people who hurt us should somehow earn our kindness before we give it. But life doesn't work that way. Sometimes, the hardest moments force us to choose not between right and wrong, but between who we are and who we refuse to become. I didn't make my choice because it was easy, and I didn't make it because anyone deserved it. I made it because I wanted to live with myself, knowing I chose compassion over bitterness. And maybe that's the quiet truth this story leaves behind. We don't control what others do to us, but we always control who we become after. If you've stayed with me until this moment, thank you truly. Your time, your attention, your empathy, they mean more than you realize. And if this story touched you in any way, I want you to know something important. Your small actions matter. One subscription from you helps stories like this reach someone who might be struggling in silence. One like, one share, one comment could be the moment that helps someone rethink their choices or feel a little less alone. You're not just watching, you're making a difference. So if you feel this message deserves to go further, gently support the channel by subscribing, liking, and sharing. And if you have a thought or a story of your own, leave it in the comments. I read them all. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next story.